Hi, I'm going to show you how I am making some masks that we can send to perhaps people in the medical field, perhaps people that are working in nursing homes, shelters, people that go into home for healthcare work, people that are just nervous about going out in public themselves and they may not have access to masks. Now these are not obviously going to be N95 grade, however, they will cover your face enough for droplets perhaps to be contained. Perhaps they would form at least an initial barrier from droplets coming in, which we know is one of the ways that it's transmitted. As we go through the process, I'll show you a little bit about how I'm hearing that people are also using them to extend the life of their personal protective equipment in the hospital until hopefully their ship comes in and they have supplies available. Hopefully they won't need it. Hopefully these will be made and put aside and not used, but just in case they're needed, we're out there helping them. The first thing that you're going to need is cotton. So what I'm using is a washed sheet, a cotton sheet that I've had. Nothing special, but my floor is clean, but it's not perfect, but they will be sanitized when they get to the hospital or medical institutions, so I'm not going to worry about that right now. I happen to have the great fortune of a tile floor, and I share that with you because it helps me do volume. So my goal is not to spend 20 minutes per mask, but to eventually get fast enough so that I can kind of crank them out. So over the last couple of days, and I'll share with you how I've made these, I'm able to hopefully create at least some beginning of volume for one person. And I'll show you how. I'm going to show you the shortcuts that I've learned in the 3 days that I've been making them. So the first thing is I have actually increased the size a little bit from the CDC requirement of 6 by 9 inches to 7 by 10, and I'll tell you why. Number one, it makes it a little easier to do pleats, which will keep it snugger against the face. The second thing is that I'm hearing is that in order to extend the use of personal medical equipment that they're using for protection, I'm hearing that it's possible that what some medical professionals are using, and I'm not talking about when they have a COVID-19 patient, but let's say they're working on putting sutures in a child's leg, they're going to use a protective barrier to make sure everybody's safe. So let's say they have one of these. So what I'm hearing that some of them are starting to do is actually take one of these and tie it over that. And what that does, it extends the life of the one underneath, and then these can be sterilized. So they do a good job of second coating, kind of a second protection. So anyway, I'm making mine a little bit larger. That allows for that possibility. I've even heard that they are putting these over N95s because some of them are having to use those more than once, which I can't even imagine. So anyway, with that said, the first thing I'm going to need is a 7 by 10 piece of cloth times 2 to make one. So what I've done is I use a tape measure. You can do whatever you want. I've measured out 7 inches by 10 inches will happen in a minute. So what I'm going to do is this is 7 inches, and I'm using the actual crack in my floor. You can draw it on with chalk or whatever way you do it. I'm going to cut these. I happen to have this folded in 4s so that I can make 4 times as many at a time, because my goal, like I said, is efficiency and volume. So I don't want to cut all these individual ones. I would like to cut many of them. And I'm going to cut the seam on the side so that I can also have the potential here of more. Once I do that, I take these. Now this is my 7-inch one. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to lay this on my table. And I am now going to measure 10 inches. And so that brings it to about here. Now, these do not have to be 100% perfect because they're going to be sewn with using your foot on the sewing machine as a guide. So I'm going to just make 10 inches. Let me just double check that one more time. I'm going to make a little cut there just to double check. Okay, that's good. And then I'm going to do another one up here to give myself a guide. And then I'm just going to make my 10-inch cuts. Okay, now these, like I said, they don't have to be 100% flawless because you're going to be sewing a lot of them. Now I'm going to take 2 of these, and 2 of these are going to make one of my masks. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to decide what kind of tie I'm going to use. That's the dilemma because apparently, like toilet paper, there is no longer elastic in the United States. If you have it squirreled away in your sewing box, power to you. I didn't have any because I'm not in the place where all my sewing stuff is. So I've had to look at different options. I had this yarn that I got back in the day that happens to be a flat, kind of stretchy yarn. So I have some of this that I've been using. I have some of this corded material. It's just a thin rolled cord. I got this at Walmart. Of course, they ran out of that now. So I've used that. Shoestrings are a possibility. Actually, I may show you how to use these ties, these elastic ties that I got at the dollar store. These are a possibility. But for now, any kind of string that you can use, I'm going to demonstrate it with a couple kinds. This happens to be a type of yarn that is a chenille yarn. I have a feeling that this will work perfectly because it's washable, it's sterilizable, and it's also easy to work with. The other thing that they've said, the European model of making these, they make their own straps or their own ties. And I'm going to show you quickly how to make these because if you don't have any string at all or any elastic or any yarn, you're going to have to make ties. The way that I make ties is a little bit like the European model, and the way that they did it is they take the sheeting or whatever it is that you're using for cotton, and you cut a 2-inch strip, and that's the number that works best for me. So I'm going to measure 2 inches, and I'm going to make a little cut on my sheet, and it's right there. Hopefully this will work. And then you're going to cut it, or just rip it. And you're going to rip it the whole length of your sheet. And hopefully it will stay. It looks like it's getting wider than 2 inches. But generally, if you cut it with the right grain, it stays at 2 inches. So I'm going to show you what you do. And if this goes the whole length of it, more power to you. I'm going to work with a piece just this big for now, because you're probably going to need a piece of tie that's about 14 to 15 inches long per tie, and you're going to need 4 of them. So the way that they do it in the European model of making these, and get closer, Dave, so you can see this, and I'm going to show you on the sewing machine. You take your 2-inch piece, you fold it 1/3, 1/3, and then fold the whole thing over. And then you sew it all the way down. So I know that people that are really good sewers would probably press it, because I know that they did on the, I think on the European model, but I'm ADHD, I don't have time for that. So I'm going to show you how I do it just right on the machine. So now I have my 2-inch strip, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it over to the machine. I'm going to fold it in 1/3, 1/3, and then I'm going to fold the whole piece over in half, and I'm going to actually do it like this so I can get it going. And then once it's in half, I'm gonna kind of get it tucked in good, going down. And I'm just gonna put it in my machine for now to get it started. And I'm gonna sew it right down the center using just a straight running stitch cotton. I'm just using cotton thread. And I'm just gonna follow this all the way down. Okay, of course it's not gonna go. Okay, now we're getting it now. And I'm just gonna keep all the way down. I'm gonna ravel it into a strip. And then as it goes down, I'm gonna keep adding 1/3 in, 1/3 in, flip it over, make it into a strip, follow it down. And then I'm gonna bring it down a little bit further and all the way down. And you can make these as long as your strip of fabric is. And what I'm gonna do, just in the sake of time, is stop it here, cut that off, and show you what these look like. And I have another one made. So you are now basically making your tie straps. And I did make one here that you could cut into your 14-inch strips. The way that I'm doing it, if I don't want to measure, is I basically go kind of from my middle finger almost to my elbow, and then I cut it, fold it, do another one, cut it, fold it. So this would make 3 of them. So what I would then do is I would take my scissor, cut it into 3, and if I had one more, which I just made, where did that go? Right here. Okay, so now I have 4 of them, and I'm just going to show you with this. Now, here's how I do it with my ties, and this was my mother's idea, and it works perfectly. You take it and you fold the bottom like this. This saved me a ton of time. You come over to your square, and you set it in the middle, sort of like a starfish. And forget that this is damaged. Let me get one that's not. I don't know where that is because this wasn't old. Okay, you're going to put it in the middle like that. Then what you're going to do is you're going to put 1 tie in each corner. And don't worry so much what angle they are, because in the long run, they're going to end up being untied in the center, and it'll all work out in the mix. So you want 1 in each corner where it comes up almost to the edge. And then you're going to take your next piece and you are going to put that piece over it. So I'm going to take that piece and put that piece over it. And then I'm going to make sure they're tucked in good so they go right to the corner. And if you're worried about it, maybe even a slight bit over the corner, and you're going to pin your corners. Now, if I wasn't using ties, I would be doing the exact same thing with my blue yarn or my cord, whatever it is that's going to be your tie. And you're going to make sure you have them anchored in each of the corners. This other one looks like a strange piece of fabric, but anyway, that's okay. We'll figure it out. Okay, this is just a sample. You'll get the idea. Okay, so, and don't worry, because the idea is underneath you're gonna not want to sew the gob of yarn, string in the middle, because that is eventually going to be untied. Once I have my 4 corners tied, what I then do is I do at least 1 on each side. And like I said, I'm working with volume here because I'm trying to get my nephew 50 of them by the weekend, because his hospital is beginning to look like they need them. I'm going to trim this one outside piece of fabric a little bit, because that was probably when I was tired. That other piece was from before, and I want it to match the piece a little bit better. Okay, so now I'm going to tie it once here. I put down with a pin. Then I'm going to go over to my sewing machine. Now here's another good trick. I am going to start it 2/3 of the way down one side. And I'm going to use the foot of my sewing machine as my guide because I made it a little bit bigger than the CED size, so I can do that. And I'm going to want to make sure that all my stuff is nice and in the middle, that there's none of this tie back over here. And I'm going to go to the corner. Uh-oh, doesn't it figure? Hold on, my string broke.
I'm gonna stop it.
Stop it, just pause it for a second.